Marilyn Monroe sits alone in the back of a dark theater watching a rehearsal. On stage, the director is teaching his actors about method acting. He tells them, "Don't be like Marilyn Monroe. Film stars don't understand real theater." The actors laugh. Marilyn hears every word. She doesn't move, doesn't reveal herself, just sits quietly in the shadows. When the director takes a break, what she does next makes him wish he'd stayed silent. Before we continue with this story, please take just 10 seconds to subscribe and hit that like button. It helps us bring you more stories like this one. Now, let's discover together what really happened in that theater. New York City, off-Broadway. Tuesday afternoon, late winter. The Provincetown Playhouse on MacDougal Street. Small, historic. O'Neill premiered here, Williams worked here. Serious theater. 200 seats. Dark, except for stage. Work lights. 6 actors in black, young, serious, holding scripts, listening. Director center stage, Robert Harding, 42, 18 years directing. Off-Broadway mostly, respected, known for method commitment. Stanislavski, trained at Actors Studio briefly, considers himself part of that revolution. Robert teaches, not directing. Teaching method principles. Theater versus film acting. Truth versus performance. Been talking 20 minutes. Emotional memory. Sense memory. Using real experience. The actors listen intently. He uses examples. Good and bad. Points to Brando. Kim Stanley. Then contrasts. Film actors, Hollywood stars. People who rely on looks, on camera. He says the name. Marilyn Monroe. Prime example. Everything wrong. All surface. Film stars like her wouldn't last one day in real theater. She just poses, plays a type, never goes deeper, never finds truth, never actually acts. The actors nod, laugh. Agreement. They're insiders. They're serious. They're better than Hollywood. Marilyn Monroe sits in the back row, has been there 30 minutes. Dark clothes, scarf covering hair, sunglasses. Came in quietly during break. Wanted to watch, learn, stay anonymous. She's been studying at Actors Studio 2 years. Private sessions with Strasberg. He considers her one of his most talented students, most committed, most willing to be vulnerable. But the public doesn't know. She hears Robert use her name, hears the dismissal, hears the laughter, sits very still, the familiar small death, being reduced, being used as negative example, being decided without being known. She could leave, walk out, let them stay ignorant. But something stops her, exhaustion maybe, the desire to be seen. Really seen. Robert continues the rehearsal, moves from lecture into scene work. 2 actors step forward. They're working on a scene from Chekhov, Uncle Vanya. Difficult material, about disappointment, about wasted life, about the gap between what you hoped for and what you got. They begin, reading lines, but Robert stops them immediately, tells them they're indicating, showing sadness instead of being sad, showing frustration instead of feeling frustrated. They're performing the scene instead of living it. He demonstrates, shows what he means, takes one actor's place, reads the same lines, but differently, more internal, more connected, more real. This is what he wants. This is method. This is truth. The actors try again. Better this time. Robert gives notes, encourages, pushes, demands more, demands vulnerability, demands access. This is good work, hard work, real work. This is what theater is supposed to be, what makes it matter, what makes it art. Marilyn watches all of this, recognizes it, knows it. She does exactly this work with Strasberg, exactly these exercises, exactly this approach. She works on scenes, on emotional access, on finding truth beneath text. She knows how hard it is, how vulnerable it makes you, how much courage it requires. She respects these actors for doing it, respects Robert for teaching it. That's why hearing him use her as a negative example hurts, because she's doing the same work. In the same tradition, with the same commitment, but nobody knows, nobody sees. The rehearsal continues for another hour. Scene work, notes, discussion. It's good rehearsal, productive. The actors are improving. Finding depth. Robert is skilled, knows what he's doing, knows how to guide actors toward truth. Marilyn watches with genuine interest. This is her world too, even if they don't know it, even if they wouldn't believe it. Finally, Robert calls break. 15 minutes. The actors scatter, Some go outside for cigarettes. Some sit in the house seats. Some stretch. Some look at their scripts. Robert walks down into the house, sits in the third row, takes out his notebook, reviews his notes, plans the next section of rehearsal. Marilyn stands. Her movement is quiet but visible now. She walks down the aisle, slowly, from the back of the theater toward the stage, toward Robert. Her footsteps are soft but audible in the quiet space. Robert looks up, sees a figure approaching, can't see clearly. The theater is dark. Work lights don't reach far into the house. He asks if he can help, assumes she's lost, assumes she wandered in by mistake. This is a closed rehearsal, private space, not open to the public. She shouldn't be here. Marilyn stops a few feet from him, removes her sunglasses, takes off her scarf, lets her hair fall. The light catches her face. Robert stares. Recognition crashes over him. His expression changes, goes from confusion to shock. His mouth opens, closes, opens again. No words come out. She tells him she's been watching the rehearsal, says it's good work, really good. The actors are talented, committed. He's teaching well, making them better, making them deeper. She means this. Not sarcasm, not anger, genuine appreciation for the work. Robert still hasn't found words, just stares at Marilyn Monroe, standing in his theater, having apparently watched his entire rehearsal, having heard everything, including the part where he used her as the prime example of bad acting, of everything wrong with film stars, of shallow commercial performance. Marilyn continues, says she noticed he mentioned her name, used her as an example of someone who doesn't understand real acting, who couldn't do theater work, who represents surface over depth. She says this calmly, factually, no accusation in her voice, just stating what happened, what she heard. Robert's face goes red, then pale. He opens his mouth, trying to form an apology, trying to explain, trying to backtrack. But Marilyn holds up her hand gently. She's not looking for an apology, not here to make him grovel, here for something else. She tells him she studies at the actor's studio, has been studying with Lee Strasberg for 2 years, private sessions, working on exactly what he was teaching today, emotional memory, sense memory, finding truth beneath performance. She works on scenes, does exercises, goes deep, does the same work his actors are doing, the same tradition, the same technique. Robert stares. This doesn't match anything he assumed, anything he believed. Marilyn Monroe at the actor's studio, training with Strasberg, doing method work, seriously, actually doing it, not as publicity, not as image management, actually studying, actually working. Marilyn asks if he knows Strasberg's work. Robert nods. Of course, Strasberg is legendary, one of the founders of method in America, teaching the techniques that Robert himself uses, that he teaches his actors. Robert studied with people who studied with Strasberg, considers himself part of that lineage. Marilyn tells him Strasberg says she's one of his most talented students, one of his most committed, most willing to be vulnerable, to go to difficult emotional places, to find real truth. Strasberg doesn't praise easily, doesn't lie to students. If he says someone is talented, he means it. He says that about her. Robert is processing, trying to reconcile. Marilyn Monroe the image, the movie star, the sex symbol, with Marilyn Monroe the actor's studio student, the method actor, the serious artist. These things don't fit together in his head, don't match his categories, don't align with his understanding of how the world works, of who is serious and who is shallow, of who does real work and who just poses. Marilyn can see this, sees the struggle on his face. She's seen it before, people trying to adjust their assumptions when confronted with evidence, trying to maintain old beliefs while absorbing new information. It's painful, uncomfortable. Most people choose the old beliefs, choose certainty over truth, choose comfortable wrongness over uncomfortable rightness. She decides to show him, not just tell him, show him. She asks if she can work on a scene, right now, with one of his actors. Let him see what she does, how she works, whether it matches what he was teaching, whether it's real or fake, whether she actually understands method, or whether she's pretending. Robert hesitates. This is irregular, unplanned, but curiosity wins. He calls one of the actresses, a young woman named Sarah, who's been working on Nina from the Seagull. Sarah comes down, sees Marilyn Monroe, her eyes go wide, confused, excited, uncertain what's happening. Robert explains, briefly. Marilyn wants to work on a scene. Sarah agrees immediately. What else can she do? This is Marilyn Monroe, in their theater, asking to work on a scene. This is impossible. This is actually happening. They choose Nina's monologue, the one where she talks about being an actress, about fame, about the gap between who you are and what people see, about performing yourself until you lose yourself, about being looked at but never seen. It's perfect, almost too perfect. Like Marilyn chose it deliberately. They don't discuss, don't plan. Marilyn just begins. She's memorized this monologue, knows it cold, has worked on it with Strasberg, has performed it in class, has gone deep into Nina's pain, Nina's confusion, Nina's loss of self. She speaks, not in Marilyn Monroe's voice, in Nina's voice, the character's voice, the person behind the performance. She's not indicating, not showing, just being, feeling, living the moment. The emotion is real, raw, vulnerable. Everything Robert was teaching about, everything he said, Marilyn Monroe couldn't do. Everything he used her name to represent the opposite of. Sarah watches, mesmerized. This is extraordinary. This is method acting at its purest. This is exactly what they've been trying to achieve. Exactly what Robert has been teaching them to find. And Marilyn Monroe is doing it. Effortlessly, deeply, truthfully. Robert watches. Can't look away. Can't process. His entire understanding is crumbling. Every assumption, every category, every certainty about who is serious and who is shallow, who does real work and who just trades on beauty. Marilyn Monroe is doing exactly what he claimed she couldn't do, is demonstrating exactly the technique he used her name to disparage, is being exactly what he said she wasn't. The monologue ends. Marilyn stops, returns to herself. The transformation is visible. She was Nina, now she's Marilyn again. That's craft, that's skill, that's what method training produces. The ability to access real emotion and then release it, to be someone else fully, and then return to yourself safely. Silence. Complete silence in the theater. Sarah has tears on her face, not from sadness, from witnessing something extraordinary, from seeing what she's trying to achieve. Actually achieved. Robert sits frozen, can't speak, can't move, just processes, just tries to rebuild his understanding with this new information, this undeniable information. Finally, Marilyn breaks the silence. Thanks Sarah for being present with her. Thanks Robert for allowing her to work in his space. Says she appreciated watching the rehearsal. Says his teaching is good, true, valuable. Says his actors are lucky to work with him. She means all of this. No sarcasm, no vindication, just truth. She puts her sunglasses back on, wraps her scarf, prepares to leave, to fade back into anonymity, to become just another person on MacDougal Street. Robert finds his voice, stops her, asks why she came today, why she stayed after hearing him, why she worked the scene, why she proved him wrong when she could have just left. Marilyn pauses, considers, tells him because method matters, because this work matters, because Strasberg and Stanislavski matter, because she doesn't want him teaching actors that certain people can't do this work, can't access this truth, can't achieve this depth. Everyone can. Everyone should be encouraged, not just the people who look right, who fit the image, who match assumptions. Everyone, she tells him she's spent her career being told she's shallow, being told she's just pretty, just decoration, just surface. People decide this without watching her work, without asking about her training, without seeing her process, just decide based on her image, based on her success, based on their need to believe beautiful means empty. She tells him she could have interrupted his rehearsal, could have confronted him publicly, could have embarrassed him in front of his actors, could have made him look small. But that doesn't teach, doesn't help, doesn't change anything, just creates defensiveness, just makes people protect their assumptions harder. She wanted him to see, wanted him to learn, wanted him to maybe change what he teaches, what he assumes, who he dismisses. Robert sits with this lesson disguised as a scene, this grace disguised as demonstration. He was wrong, completely wrong, used her name carelessly, used her image thoughtlessly. made her an example of something she's not, something she's actively working against, and instead of punishing him for it, she taught him, showed him, gave him the opportunity to learn, to grow, to be better. He apologizes, actually apologizes, says he was wrong, says he made assumptions, says he'll stop using her name as a negative example, says he'll stop teaching his actors that film stars can't do theater work, says he learned something today, something important, something humbling. Marilyn nods, accepts the apology, then leaves, walks up the aisle, out the door, back into the afternoon, back into being Marilyn Monroe the movie star, the image, the symbol, leaving behind Marilyn Monroe the method actor, the Strasbourg student, the artist, the person who just proved she's more than anyone assumed. Robert sits in his theater, processing. The actors return from break. Ask who that was, what just happened. Robert tells them everything, about Marilyn being there, about what he said, about her confronting him, about the scene, about learning he was completely wrong. The actors are silent, processing their own assumptions, their own easy laughter, their own participation in the dismissal. They thought they were insiders, thought they were the serious ones, thought they were better than Hollywood, better than movie stars, better than Marilyn Monroe. Turns out they didn't know anything, didn't know who was in their theater, didn't know who they were dismissing, didn't know that the person they laughed about works harder than they do, studies more seriously than they do, goes deeper than they've yet learned how to go. Robert changes his teaching that day, stops using examples of bad actors, stops naming names, stops creating hierarchies, just focuses on the work, on truth, on technique, on helping each actor find their own way to emotional honesty, stops deciding who can and can't do this work, just teaches everyone who shows up ready to try. Years later, Robert tells this story to students, to fellow directors, to anyone who makes easy assumptions about actors, about movie stars, about beauty and depth. He tells them about the day Marilyn Monroe sat in his theater, heard him dismiss her, stayed anyway, worked a scene, proved him wrong, taught him something, changed how he sees everyone, changed how he teaches, changed him. He never uses anyone's name as a negative example again, never makes assumptions about who's serious and who's shallow, never decides who can do the work before seeing them try. Marilyn Monroe taught him that, not with anger, not with vindication, with grace, with demonstration, with the quiet power of being more than anyone assumed. Think about the names you use as examples, the people you dismiss without knowing, the assumptions you make about who's serious and who's shallow, about who works hard and who coasts, about who has depth and who's just surface. Marilyn Monroe sat in a dark theater and heard herself reduced to a punchline, to an example of everything wrong. She could have left, could have let them stay ignorant. Instead she stayed, showed them, taught them, without cruelty, without vindication, just with truth, just with her work. That's power. That's grace. That's how you change minds. Subscribe for more stories about the moments when assumptions break, when categories fail, when we discover we were wrong about everything, and ask yourself whose name are you using as a negative example without actually knowing their work.